Jaden Freeman never imagined that one ordinary walk home from school would change his life forever. The shortcut through the woods seemed harmless, a path he had taken many times before. But on this day, three shadows stepped out of the trees. They weren't strangers. They were the sons of the most powerful men in Mason County, the sheriff's boy, the judge's boy, and the hardware store owner's boy. Before Jaden could even react, they surrounded him. With mocking laughter, they shoved him to the ground. His backpack ripped open, books scattered. Chase Carter, the sheriff's son, sneered, "These are our woods, boy. You don't belong here." What began as cruel words quickly turned into a nightmare. Jaden tried to defend himself, but he was outnumbered. Fists rained down on him. The boys tied his hands, taped his mouth, and dragged him deeper into the forest. In a clearing, they lit a wooden cross, flames crackling in the darkness. It wasn't just violence, it was hate. They kicked him, laughed, and left him battered in the dirt. Crawling through the leaves, bruised and bleeding, Jaden finally reached a dirt road where an old farmer found him and called for help. At the hospital, his mother clutched his broken body and whispered through tears, "My baby, what did they do to you?" Then she made a call she had hoped never to make. Her voice shook as she left the message. "Caleb, they hurt our son." Miles away, a phone lit up. A man picked it up slowly. Caleb Freeman, Navy SEAL veteran, had lived years in silence after the war. But hearing those words, he whispered only two, "I'm coming." The next morning, Caleb's car rolled quietly into Mason County. At a diner, he sat in the corner, listening. Locals gossiped about how the sheriff's boy taught that kid a lesson. They laughed about power, about how nothing would ever happen to Chase, Colton, or Tanner. Caleb didn't speak. He just memorized every face, every word. At the hospital, Caleb sat beside his son. "Tell me who?" he asked softly. Jaden, barely able to whisper, gave the names. Chase Carter, Colton Harrison, Tanner Thompson. Caleb's jaw tightened. He took photos of every injury, every bruise. Evidence. That night, he walked back into the woods. He collected cigarette butts, rope fibers, tire tracks. While the county thought they had power, Caleb knew something they didn't. He had patience, precision, and 20 years of training. One by one, he paid visits. To Sheriff Carter, "Your son beat mine. You call it boys being boys. I call it attempted murder." The sheriff smirked, dismissing him. To Judge Harrison, "Your son was there. Cover him, and you cover up hate." The judge laughed, calling it hearsay. To Carl Thompson, "Your boy took pictures while my son suffered. I'll give you one chance to do the right thing." Thompson brushed him off. Behind closed doors, the three powerful men met. "We'll handle Caleb," the sheriff said. "He's just one man." But outside the barn, in the darkness, Caleb was listening, recording every word. The next morning, Mason County woke up to chaos. Sheriff Carter's truck sat in the station lot, stripped down to bare metal, engine gone, tires gone, even the badge ripped off the side. Thompson's garage was discovered with rifles dismantled, hanging like twisted ornaments. Judge Harrison found an envelope on his desk. Inside, photographs of his son at the crime scene, along with files exposing years of bribes and corruption. Everywhere they turned, Caleb had already been there. Judge Harrison came home one evening to find Caleb sitting calmly at his kitchen table. "You can fix this," Caleb said, sliding the confession papers across the table. The judge trembled but refused. Caleb leaned close. "If anything happens to my boy again, there won't be a second warning." Sheriff Carter thought he could outmatch Caleb on a hunting trip, but when he raised his rifle, the chamber was empty. Caleb already had the bullets. With surgical precision, Caleb disarmed him, tied him to a tree, and crushed his badge under his boot. "Now you know what helpless feels like," he whispered before vanishing into the fog. Still, the fathers ordered their sons to finish what they had started. One night, masked and emboldened, the boys broke into Jaden's home. But this time, Jaden wasn't the same boy they left bleeding in the dirt. Under his father's guidance, he had trained. Chase lunged, only to have his arm twisted until it snapped. Tanner charged, but Jaden sidestepped, sending him crashing into a wall. Colton tried to escape, but Jaden dropped him with a single blow. When the police arrived, the scene should have ended, but instead of arresting the attackers, deputies handcuffed Jaden. That night, he sat in a cold cell. Caleb visited. "This isn't about fear anymore," he said. "This is your test. You stood tall. Now let me finish." By morning, news cameras and community leaders crowded outside the sheriff's office. Jaden's mother stepped forward, handing the mayor an envelope stuffed with evidence Caleb had gathered. The pressure was undeniable. Within an hour, charges were dropped. By 9:15, Jaden walked free. The sheriff went on vacation. The judge resigned. Thompson's store quietly shut down. Their empire of fear collapsed, brick by brick. Weeks later, in a small gymnasium, Jaden stood before a group of younger kids, teaching them simple self-defense. "This isn't about fighting," he told them. "It's about being ready. About never being afraid again." In the shadows, Caleb watched silently. For the first time in years, he allowed himself a small smile. Justice had come, not through the courts, not through power, but through courage, truth, and the bond between a father and his son. Because in the end, power is not about control. It's not about fear. Real power is about protecting the ones you love and standing tall when the world tries to break you.